Thank you very much, Paolo. Good afternoon, everybody. So on behalf of Mira Pavlovic, I'm sure that a lot of you know Mira because she has been very active in the field of regulatory scientific advice in past years, and now she's very active in multi-HTA scientific advice. She can't be there today. She sent her apologies, and I tried to make a presentation on her behalf. First comment maybe with the first slide on something that should be highlighted, that has been a bit highlighted in the morning, but should be more highlighted, is that these development of early dialogues or scientific advice or parallel scientific advice is one of the points where cooperation is needed. But Finn mentioned this morning that we need to have a perspective on the whole life cycle of the product. And we have also to keep in mind that other areas of cooperation are very important, such as the cooperation on additional evidence generation after the product launch, such as pilot assessment reports that are being produced, coordinated by CVZ, such as general methodology guidelines coordinated today by EQUIG, and all these actions should be seen together. Back to this question of improving initial evidence generation, early dialogues or scientific advice is a product-specific approach, but we are also developing within EUnetHTA the disease-specific approach by having a pilot disease-specific guidelines, the first one being on osteoarthritis. So early dialogues, you know that scientific advice is in place, has been in place for a long time in the level of regulatory agencies. National HTA advice has been put in place, for instance, by NICE in 2009, and also in Sweden, TLV, and in Germany, GBA, and Italy, IFA, and now we do some in France as well, so there are other countries. And this parallel regulatory plus HTA scientific advice. So the initiatives I'm going to present to you is a multi-HTA early dialogues that have started in 2012 and with two phases. The ongoing phase is the current process I'm going to describe to you is the multi-HTA early dialogues that take place within the frame of the EUnetHTA cooperation, the EUnetHTA Joint Action 2. And so these examples have been given already today. So these main characteristics are here on these slides: confidential, non-binding, for new products with an expected or with a good assumption of added benefit. And we do that, we examine, we assess, we provide a dialogue for one indication per early dialogue. So the first, what is the initial step for the procedure is for the company to send a letter of intent indicating the motivations and the main characteristic of the product, the indication, the question, the intent to raise, and that the criteria for selection. And then there is a much more elaborated document that is the briefing book, and the final phase before the minutes are produced is the face-to-face meeting. So the briefing book, the most important document, should indicate appropriate information on what is the development strategy for the company, and what are also the studies that are planned for either for clinical or for cost effectiveness. And we should have questions that should be prospective in nature. And of course, if the decision has already been taken on a point for the development, it's not worth discussing it anymore. So that should be prospective questions. So the face-to-face, so if we take D0 as the face-to-face meeting, we need to have currently the briefing book 2 months in advance. So companies should send the briefing book to the HTA bodies that participate in the multi-HTA early dialogues 2 months in advance. Then after 15 days, there's a teleconference between HTA bodies to identify whether the briefing book is complete and adequate, or if we need to ask more detailed information to the company. So this is done after this teleconference between HTA bodies. Clarification should be given by the company 30 days before the face-to-face meeting. And we ask HTA bodies to send to HAS, as the coordinator of this action, written answers to the questions that are raised by the companies in the briefing book. So then there is an early dialogue face-to-face meeting with a first discussion in the morning on the key issues between HTA bodies. So that's where we can have these discussions, or what are the points on which there is a convergence, and what are the points on which we disagree, and whether we can come to a common position or not, and explain that. So this is, of course, a very important phase for us to progress one early dialogue after the other, to try, together with the development of the guidelines and other actions that I mentioned previously, if we try if we can try to be able to have more common views on some of the key points that are discussed. Then there is the meeting with the company in the afternoon, and of course all HTA bodies. So each question is discussed. If there is a common position, the chair of the meeting can express the common position of HTA bodies. Otherwise, each HTA body can give its answer to the question. So the dialogue is supposed to be open, maybe not enough open as mentioned in the survey of FPA survey, but we have to highlight that this survey was conducted only after 4 early dialogues, and we have now more than doubled this number. So of course the learning curves has conducted to some improvements in the process, hopefully. And then the minutes have to be sent by the company within 1 week after the meeting, and they are validated by all the partners. So that's the procedure. What did we do till now? We did, in this frame, 10 early dialogues, 2 pre-pilots before the start of the Joint Action 2 on a voluntary basis, and 8 pilots within the EUnetHTA Joint Action 2 frame. All were on drugs. So they were hosted at HAS premises and coordinated by Meyer. And you see the list of HTA bodies that participated in at least one of these early dialogues. And some of them participated only in 1 or 2 as observers. Some participated as full actors in nearly all of them. And EMA has been invited as an observer. Of course, documents remain confidential. We have covered various therapeutic fields. We had, interestingly, not only big companies, but also some small companies that went to see us. And we generally have 1-day meeting, and if appropriate, and if there are 2 products with a common indication or very near indication, we can have a 2-day meeting with 1 product every day. So what did we achieve, and what are the progresses we need to make, and how we should amend the current procedure? That's the purpose of a survey that we have conducted, and we are now finalizing its analysis. It has been sent to all HTA organizations, observers and developers, which participated to at least 1 early dialogue, and also to all companies that participated in 1 early dialogue. So we had 45 questions on all the aspects of the process, and we will use these to improve the process for the next early dialogues. So what are, as the analysis is still ongoing, they are not the final results of this analysis, but the first answer received allow me to give you some data on these points. So, 12 HTA bodies from 9 countries, and 9 companies did reply. The first question was when to get advice. You've got that already from the previous presentation. So before phase 3, sometimes before, it was already mentioned and found out by the FPA survey. And HTA bodies want to focus on product with an expected added benefit. What is the optimal number of HTA bodies? So we do not have the same figures here, but we think that, I mean, the main result of the survey that 10 HTA bodies would be probably too much. Too many HTA bodies, but so around 5 would be something. Then it's good to have a mix of agencies that are focal or clinical effectiveness, or that are more looking at cost effectiveness. Then we have to take into account something that has not been mentioned, is that within EUnetHTA we have also a goal that we should take into account, that is the capacity building across European countries concerning HTA. So maybe there we have a discrepancy between companies that want to choose the HTA bodies that participate and want them to have a certain level of expertise. And the fact that within the missions of EUnetHTA and the future HTA cooperation, we need also to take into account this capacity building objective. So the areas to cover, so 1 indication per meeting, and we can, of course, look at primary and secondary endpoints. And of course, patient-related benefit, what is the added benefit, and it's on relative clinical effectiveness and cost effectiveness. So what are the key factors for successful early dialogues at the company's perspective? So they want guidance on the information to be included in the briefing book. They agree with the HTA body that not more than 10 questions should be addressed during the face-to-face meeting. They want to discuss, one of the proposals we received, to discuss only the problematic issues during the face-to-face and not to lose time by discussing issues, questions for which there is a common understanding and a common answer. But this should be clarified because what is a problematic issue should be probably better defined. And the other question, the simpler question, could receive only an answer in writing. So that may be considered, but of course it's not yet decided. So the answers from HTA bodies should be justified in one way. Why do you reply? Why do you make these reply to our questions? And something should be summarized. You should have a summary given by the chair of the meeting after each question to be sure that the understanding is correct. And expertise, it was also mentioned in the EUnetHTA survey. It is, of course, important. And the importance of discussion had also been highlighted within EUnetHTA survey. From the HTA body's perspective, quality of the position of the company on each question is an important point. So companies, you have to make an effort to be sure not only to explain, to describe what is your position on a choice you plan to make on the development plan, but also how it can be very explained in detail why you come to this position and what is the question you have to ask on this point to be sure that there is no discrepancy between your position or to detect whether there is discrepancy between your position and the position of HTA bodies. So teleconference should be used to discuss whether the data submitted by the company are complete or not, or if we are in the need of additional information, and on what will be the key issues on this particular topic. Then there is a question on whether the companies should participate in this teleconference. The teleconference, currently, we have them between the HTA bodies and not with the companies participating. So the answer is clear. Yes for the companies, no for the HTA bodies. So we'll see in the future how this will develop. Now, HTA bodies should exchange their argued written answers 1 week before the face-to-face meeting to allow colleagues to take the answers of other bodies into consideration. And the internal discussion of HTA bodies is highlighted as being an important aspect of these early dialogues. And then an agreement on the maximum of questions that should be addressed during the meeting. So HTA agencies have different focus, some on more on clinical effectiveness, some on cost effectiveness. And the discussion should be led by the chair, who should combine, summarize consensus and divergences. The question here is whether the HTA written answers from every HTA body participating should be sent in advance to the companies. For some, these documents should stay an internal document, and if not, it should be reviewed before being sent to the company after the face-to-face meeting. So that's something that is subject to discussion. So EMA as an observer, everybody was in favor of that, of course, not to leave EMA outside of the room. Shall we do more? And do companies want a parallel scientific advice or separated? So we have split answers. I think it was very well described in the previous presentation, so I'm not going to say more about it. But some observations are on the slide, so the possibility to have a bias towards certain elements of the development programs. If EMA is an observer, that's a bit surprising, but that's some comments we had. And the point is, of course, for companies, there is an important outcome that is to try to harmonize the position of various HTA bodies, and we've discussed that already a lot in the morning. It's clear that parallel EMA HTA advice is generally supported by HTA bodies, so there are no obstacles to have that in perspective as one of the ways to conduct early dialogues between HTA bodies and companies. So what is the next step? We will integrate the results of the survey to propose an improved procedure for the future early dialogues. The future early dialogues will not be conducted within the frame of the EUnetHTA joint action. We do not have any more budget for that. And so the Commission has made some budget available in the form of the call for tenders that was published in April. Submission were to be done in June, selection in August, and contract has been signed in October. The selected project is called the SEED Consortium. It's a proposal that has been sent by HAS on behalf of 14 agencies, including HAS plus 13 other HTA bodies in Europe, to achieve the goal of these call for tenders, that is to conduct 10 early dialogues, 7 on drugs, 3 on medical devices, by a consortium of at least 10 HTA bodies. So we have 14 HTA bodies. Some are only on medical devices, some only on drugs, and others we participate in both. So what is new according to, in these SEED early dialogues as compared to previous one is that it's within the specification of the call for tenders that we should find ways to interact with regulators, and we should have also payers and patient representatives that could participate, maybe as observers, but we should propose and find a way not to leave them out of the doors. And I think that's one of the major points, and maybe something we did not discuss sufficiently. The third point I would like to highlight is that payers are an important player, and we should try a way to include them in the loop, because they are the ones who decide, for instance, on manage entry schemes and so on. The decision makers should be implicated in some way. So we are trying to find some solutions to this question. So we have preliminary work that is ongoing, procedures, adapted procedures, templates for briefing books, and all early dialogues will take place in 2014. Maybe we will extend to January 2015, but not more. And we will have an interim report and a 2 months break in the summer after 5 early dialogues. And we test 2 scenarios, independent advice and parallel advice with EMA. And at the end, we have to propose a model for permanent early dialogue activity to be proposed. And this model will be proposed and will be discussed and submitted to the EUnetHTA plenary assembly that will have its say in this proposal, and to the permanent HTA network. So just 2 concrete information on these SEED early dialogues. The call for expressions of interest is to be published very soon, in the next weeks. You said, Flora, in the next weeks. I hope in the next days, if not in the next hours, but we need 2 minutes to check whether it's ready or not. And first, we have to take into account that you have to take into account that it will be on a first come, first served basis. So be reactive once it is published. Then we have the selection, the draft criteria, that is a solid assumption of added benefit. And we will discuss with the partners whether we should adapt this criterion, but this is probably the main criterion we will have. So first come, first served is the important things to keep in mind. Now the procedures. Again, we will cover topics related to clinical or cost effectiveness, so efficiency, health economic perspective may be a part of the discussion. And the procedure will be derived from the EUnetHTA procedure. Improvements will be proposed by HAS following the completion of the analysis of the survey, and then it will be discussed with our partners of the SEED consortium and adopted by the SEED partners before being released. It is free of charge for companies, and the date of the meetings will be 1 meeting a month, except a 2 months break after the first 5 meetings. Between, hopefully, March and December. It's not 2013, as you may imagine. It's a typo. It's 2014. Okay. So you're not late, and we're not late as well. Okay. So then there will be the proposal for the permanent HTA model. We've discussed that. I think that already the answer is pretty clear. We want that a parallel advice to be possible and to be effective between EMA. I think that's something we can already conclude, and we don't want this to be the unique and only possibility. That's not something that companies want. So we have to be very flexible also with the various needs of various companies and various situations, and make both scenarios possible. So we will look at the pros and cons for each scenario and make proposal and submit these proposals to EUnetHTA and to the permanent network. So that's something that will happen in the late, in 2015. So maybe we will have another meeting at that time if you may want to organize one. So thank you very much for your attention.